All right, everyone, welcome back to another First Capital Gaming Mana Ripped podcast. This is episode 2. We know it's been a little bit since OTJ, but we were moving and whatnot. So if you guys haven't been to the new location, make sure you guys come on down. There's been a couple things that have happened since then. Obviously, MH3 is out and pre-release is pretty much over with, and we're heading into draft season. So my name is Mac, and this is
Miranda.
And we're here with First Capital Gaming, MH3, Modern Horizons 3. We're going to be talking about drafting. We're going to be talking about the new modern landscape. We're going to be talking about the new commander landscape all out here with MH3. So I think it's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be pretty cool. There's a lot of cool things that came out in MH3. Don't roast us too bad in the comments if we didn't put your favorite card up. There's a lot of cards, guys. We just went to pick what we thought is going to work out best. So we're going to start off with drafting MH3, right?
Yep.
A lot of things just happened. Pre-release is over, getting into drafts. So that you guys are better equipped out there when you're going into these drafts and what you're looking at. So we're going to start off with some bombs that are out there, just kind of that snap pick, pack one, pick one type of thing, where you can really build your decks around. All right, so here goes our bombs. We're going to start it off with the Eldrazi. They are back. Tentacles going everywhere, looking all crazy. Coming to destroy every plane that there is out there in the MTG universe, guys. So here we go. We've got Emrakul, the World Anew. He is a 12/12 legendary creature, Eldrazi, an Eldrazi Titan, as you guys know him as. 12 cost, 12 colorless. So this creature is when you cast this spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls. Flying, protection from spells, and from permanents that were cast this turn. When Emrakul, the World Anew, leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control. It also has a madness cost of pay 6 waste. There's a lot of things out here that actually create waste, you guys. So you'll have plenty of opportunities to use those waste if you want to pitch this to this madness cost. Outside of that, let's talk about the rest of this spell. Of this creature. So when you cast it, you're going to gain control of all creatures your opponent controls. In draft and limited, that is huge. This is essentially a board wipe. You're taking away their entire board. It has flying, protection from spells, and from permanents that were cast this turn. So it's not going to be able to be targetable during this turn if something was cast. So if they've got a flash, something that has flash, something at instant speed, to be able to remove this, they're not going to be able to do it the turn it was cast. And then it just board wipes everything. So even though you're taking their creatures, most of the time when you take creatures, they go back to their opponent. And in this case, you're going to have to sacrifice all those creatures you control. So they're not even going to get a chance to get those creatures back, to turn them back against you in that draft. So that's the first big one. We've got another Titan coming up here.
Ulamog, the Defiler. When you cast a spell, target opponent exiles half their library, rounded up. It also has Ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. You do not want to be countering this. Or you do, but it's a lose-lose either way. Ulamog, the Defiler, enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it, equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. Ulamog has Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. This is an absolutely disgusting card.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely disgusting. Ward, by the way, when it's on the battlefield, having to sacrifice 2 permanents, it's almost just like another Annihilator here. The exiling the half of their library, you only have 40 cards anyways, and by the time this guy is being cast, you're going to have far less than that sitting in your actual library itself anyways. Annihilator X with the +1/+1 counters. Sheesh.
This guy is trying to get rid of your permanents.
Exactly. So just imagine if you're playing against someone else that has an Emrakul, the World Anew, you happen to remove it from the field, and then they slam down an Ulamog against you. You slam down an Ulamog against them, right? This Ulamog is going to get 12 +1/+1 counters and Annihilator 12. That is ridiculous.
Yep.
All right, and rounding out our Eldrazi here is Kozilek the Broken Reality. So this is a 9-drop colorless 9/9 Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hands. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. And then other colorless creatures you control get +3/+2. So if you don't know by now, all the Eldrazi in this set have Devoid, which they count as colorless. So this is just a Lord effect, Lord Anthem for the rest of your colorless creatures. The other thing about this is you're just ripping 2 cards out of your opponent's hand. Just like that. They're going to have to manifest them. Hopefully for that other player, they are creatures because then they can at least turn them face up. If they're not, they're just going to remain 2/2s. And then you're drawing cards off of this card. That's pretty gross.
Yep.
Pretty gross. All right, let's head over to our next archetype here in draft that we've got, which is going to be Affinity. Imsker Iron Eater.
Affinity for artifacts. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. There's a lot of artifacts in MH3. That shouldn't be hard. It enters the battlefield. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is half the number of artifacts you control, rounded down. For 3 and a red, sacrifice an artifact. It deals damage equal to the sacrifice artifact's mana value to any target.
That's pretty gross. I mean, for Affinity, for artifacts, first of all, like Miranda said, there's a lot of artifacts in this actual set. You're going to be able to get this guy out early. It is an 8 cost, 6 colorless, and a black and a red pip. But having Affinity, you can reduce that cost down quickly, get him out early, and he's a 5/5 that when it ETBs, you're drawing cards equal to the number of artifacts that you control. Half of that anyways, and losing half the life. That's still a lot of card draw. It's a lot of value out of this card for sure. And then essentially just having a fling mechanic for your artifacts to where it's actually going to deal damage to any target equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value is huge. It's going to allow you to close out the game quickly, effectively with this particular creature. Art looks pretty cool too. All right, so the next card on here is Kappa Cannoneer. Now, this is more of a reprint, more so than anything else. It's been out for a while, but if you're playing Affinity, you're definitely going to want to play this card. It is a Turtle Warrior for 5 colorless and a blue pip. It has Improvise, which Improvise might as well just be a poor man's Affinity. Improvise is your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 colorless. Now, the big thing here is it has Ward 4. And then whenever Kappa Cannoneer or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Kappa Cannoneer, and it can't be blocked this turn. Oh, by the way, it is a 4/4. This is by far a big body. Again, kind of like that Affinity type of effect, you do have to tap down your artifacts to cast this thing. But then it has Ward 4.
Ward 4 is a lot.
It's a lot.
Your mana's gone.
Your mana's gone, right? Like, I don't want to pay an additional 4 to target. You want to pay an additional 4? No way. We're not trying to pay an additional 4 to be able to target Kappa Cannoneer. But the other effect on here is whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you're putting a +1/+1 counter on it, and then it can't be blocked. So just on ETB, it automatically goes from being a 4/4 to being a 5/5 right off the bat.
Yep.
And then if you play any other artifacts after it, it's just getting bigger, and you can't block it. It's unblockable. This thing becomes huge quick. I mean, it is a turtle. Turtle. So that is crazy, man. That's crazy. All right.
Worm core. Worm coral larva. Death touch, lifelink. When it dies, create a 1/2 black Phyrexian worm artifact creature token with death touch, and a 2/1 black Phyrexian worm artifact creature token with lifelink. It has death touch. I don't want to be attacking first. Second, you're gaining 3 every time you attack.
Yeah.
So good for you, bad for your opponent. And then when it dies, you're getting all these benefits. Plus another creature with lifelink and another creature with death touch.
Yeah, I mean this is if anyone remembers um what Worm Coil Engine. So 6/6 Death Touch Lifelink for 6, right? So this is 1 mana less. It does require 2 black pips, but we're in limited. It's hard to remove. There's not a ton of removal in this set. And when you do remove it, you're getting additional benefits. Not the person removing it, but the person who had the card. So they're getting 2 creatures as opposed to one with Death Touch, one with Lifelink. They're not 3/3s like Worm Coil Engine, but it's a 1/2 and a 2/1. Still does what it's supposed to do. So this is just hard to remove. I've already seen this in um, throughout the weekend and things like that with pre-release. This is a card that a lot of people run into, and it's a big issue for them. It's hard to remove. You have to worry about death touch whenever it's attacking, or if they leave it up as a blocker. Whenever it deals combat damage, it's going to gain lifelink, so that includes blocking. Whenever it deals combat damage, it's going to kill something because it has death touch. So it's just like a win-win-win-win for the person who has this card. You're going to have to spend more removal to get rid of the 2 smaller ones that come out. It poops out babies. Mm-hmm. So it's just tough to deal with. But definitely something that you're going to want in an artifact, a affinity type deck. It is an artifact creature. It makes more artifact creatures, and is exactly what you want to be doing in that type of deck. All right. So next, we've got our last archetype, which is going to be energy based. And this is going to start off with Satea Aetherflux Genius. Now, I know what you guys are saying. Isn't that a commander? It is a commander, but with the play boosters, you can actually open some of the commanders. So for a colorless, a blue, a red, and a white, this is a 3/5 human artificer. Menace, haste. Whenever it attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of up to 1 other target non-token creature you control. You get 2 energy, and then at the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice that token unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. This card is a little cracked. I think if you're playing energy, you're definitely wanting to open this card. It creates energy. It has haste. It has menace. So it's got evasion. It can attack the turn it comes out. It's creating its own energy, and it's creating an additional token attack with it. Outside of that, it's a 3/5 body for 4. Now, the mana is a little weird because you're needing 3 different mana as far as mana pips. So you need a blue, you need a red, and you need a white. So, but as we've all know, in drafts, it's not that hard to run 3 colors. There's a lot of different lands that will help you get those colors that are in this as well that you can sacrifice and go find an island, a mountain, or a plains. But they also tap for mana, which is really cool. So unlike Evolving Wilds, where you have to sacrifice it and go get it, you can still use that mana for colorless mana. So pretty cool. What do you think about this?
No comment.
There's the headline, guys. No comment. MH3. All right, here we go. We're going to go back to our bombs here.
Guide of Souls. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and you get an energy. Whenever you attack, you may pay 3 energies. When you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters on a flying and a flying counter on target attacking creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types.
All right. So if you're playing the energy deck, this card is just going to allow you to ramp your energy, right? You're also gaining life off of it. So it's an ETB whenever another creature, doesn't matter what the creature is, whenever it enters the battlefield under your control, you're gaining a life and an energy. So you're increasing your energy. The life gain is just a bonus. Whenever you attack, it doesn't have to be this creature. So you can just leave this creature not attacking, but whenever you attack, you may pay 3 energy, and you're putting 2+1/+1 counters plus a flying counter on an attacking creature. That's a lot. That allows you to take the main character we want to find for creature that we want to find for the energy build, which is Satea here, and not only give it menaced and haste, but also give it flying and make it bigger. And so, and you're going to be triggering off the tokens that are coming in. They're going to ETB, gain you 1 life, gain you an energy, and you'll be able to hopefully pay for that, whatever the cost is of that creature. Now, that's perfect world scenario, right? One's a mythic and one is a rare. So the likelihood in draft that you see both of these in packs while you're drafting is low. But it is something with play boosters that is really viable to actually do, obviously, just because you have the potential to open multiple rares, mythics in a play booster pack. And if no one's on energy, you can definitely get this passed to you. All right, we're going to head over to our next, our number 3 here that I think it's an uncommon that I really think is huge for this energy deck, and that is Phyrexian Ironworks. So if you see this card, again, these are like pack 1, pick 1 picks if you plan on building these archetypes. So whenever you attack, you get an energy. You can then tap it, pay 3 energy, create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token, activate only as a sorcery. It's 2 colorless and 1 red pip. So this puts us again right on target with what we're trying to do with the energy deck. It does not matter what type of creature it is, you're going to get energy when attacking. This deck is definitely going to be an aggressive deck. It wants to attack, it wants to go sideways, and you're probably going to want to go out wide as well with this deck when you're building it. And this Phyrexian Ironworks just helps with doing those things. It's able to create more creatures for you to attack with, which is huge. All right. Now it is only at sorcery speed, which I don't think we really matter about that so much. You're just getting more things, and it's a 3/3 colorless golem, so it's not a small creature, especially for draft.
Especially because the mana super cheap.
Yeah, super cheap. All right, we've got a few more bombs here that we actually teched out here, guys. So these just kind of don't have a specific archetype that's huge in the set, but they're really, really, really good cards. So we're going to go over them. They're still kind of pack 1, pick 1 cards.
6. It has reach. It's tree folk. Whenever 6 attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put a land card from among them into your hand. As long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. You may cast a permanent card from your graveyard by discarding a land in addition to paying their other costs. This is pretty good. It costs 1 green and 2 colorless. You're milling 3 cards, but you're also putting a land in your hand. And if you also just put a land in your graveyard, that's perfect.
Yeah, and then the ability to give retrace. So you're not totally losing those other spells that are going into the graveyard. So it turns itself on. You're able to pitch additional lands that you don't need in your hand to cast those cards from the graveyard as well. So there is a slight graveyard undertoning theme that you can definitely build off of in this set. But I think 6 can go into almost any green deck that you want to build when you're actually building for draft. All right. So let's go to our next one. It was Psychic Frog. This is in Dimir colors, 1 blue, 1 black. Creature Frog, it's a 1/2 rare. Whenever Psychic Frog deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card. And then you can discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Psychic Frog. You can also exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Psychic Frog gains flying until end of turn. I've seen this card already do some crazy stuff over the weekend with Sealed and pre-release. Um, First of all, it's refilling your hand when it deals combat damage to either a player or a planeswalker. And there are some planeswalkers in this set. Discarding a card to put a +1/+1 counter on it, so you're able to pump it up. It's doing Dimir things. Dimir likes to put cards in graveyards, your own cards into your graveyard. And then you can give it evasion. So you can exile 3 cards from your graveyard, and it will gain flying until end of turn. I think that's pretty crazy. It's a 2 mana, 1/2. You can do this, start doing this early, and you're drawing a lot of cards, so you don't mind pitching some cards, right?
Yeah.
And then any bad card that you may have drafted that you had to fill in to hit your 40, you have no problem with exiling that card from your graveyard to give this little guy evasion.
Yep. Nadu, Winged Wisdom. Flying. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. Flying, 3/4 with it's a 3 cost. That's amazing cost.
Yeah, so this is in the Simic colors. Simic likes to pump up their creatures, put +1/+1 counters, things like that. So this isn't just from like your opponent targeting it. You can target it yourself. You're in green, you're in blue. Most of the targets, your own creatures are in green from fighting, putting +1/+1 counters, things like that. So you're doing Simic things with this. The fact that this triggers twice is just they've been so careful to say only triggers once a turn to limit it to 2 turn twice. Not only is it flying, not only is it a 3/4, not only is it 3 costs, but the ability can trigger twice, and it's all your creatures. So if you target Nadu twice, you get this trigger twice. If you target another creature twice, you're still getting the trigger twice because it's creatures you control have it.
Yep.
You can do some crazy stuff with this. Really, really crazy stuff. I think this is great in limited. We're going to be talking about this card a little bit later too, right?
Yep.
In limited, it seems just freaking broken. It does seem broken for the upcoming modern format as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. All right, so our next card here is going to be Fanatic of Ronus. For 1 colorless and a green pip, it is a Snake Druid 1/4 rare. It taps to add a green mana. It then has Ferocious, tap to add 4 green mana. Activate only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. And then it has Eternalize. So even if you get rid of this, it can come back for 4 mana from your graveyard by exiling it and making a token copy of it that does the same thing, except now instead of being a 1/4, it is a 4/4. That's gross. I opened this card in pre-release, and I played Eldrazi. So this card is great for those Eldrazi decks. It's going to be great for any type of ramp deck. There's a ramp deck. Just you can play mono green in this format and play big things. There are hydras and things like that are huge, that are mana intensive. So you can do that in this as well very easily. So I don't like the fact that it comes back as a 4/4. I like it for me when I played it, but if my opponent has this card, it comes back as a 4/4. A 1/4 is not as scary, but coming back as a 4/4 is crazy.
Yeah, the one coming in for 2 mana, it's pretty good, and it kind of buys you time to build up your mana.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah.
So it's a mana dork by itself, and then it becomes a bigger mana dork. That's crazy. All right. So next, what we're going to be talking about are just kind of like the enhancers to each one of these decks. So we try to stay around commons, uncommons, things like that are just going to go in theme with the deck that you're building. So whether that's going to be Eldrazi Ramp, whether it's going to be Affinity, Artifacts Affinity, or if it's going to be the energy build. So each one of these cards are just going to help enhance those particular decks as you're drafting. So these are going to be other picks that you want to start looking for while you're going through the draft as cards are being passed around. So first we've got Eldrazi here for our enhancers.
So first one we got Kozilek Unsealing. As it's an enchantment, cost 1 blue and 2 colorless. As devoid, this card has no color. Whenever you cast a creature spell with a mana value 4, 5, or 6, create 2 0-1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifice this creature, add a colorless. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. You're playing this on turn 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're definitely playing this on turn 3, right?
Yep.
You're ramping, right? This is Eldrazi Ramp. I think Eldrazi Ramp is best in the blue-green spectrum here, but 4, 5, or 6, you're creating 2 colorless Eldrazi spawn that create you more mana. And then 7 or greater, you're drawing not 1, not 2, but 3 cards, right? So you get to refill your hand, which you'll probably want to be doing with this deck, right? So pretty good there. The next one is another enchantment. It is Path of Annihilation for 3 colorless and 1 green. This is another devoid. This card has no color. When Path of Annihilation enters the battlefield, create 2 0-1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens. With sacrifice this creature, add a waste. Eldrazi you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, you gain 4 life. So let's pause here for a minute and talk about both of these enchantments together. Are pretty crazy. Path of Annihilation takes those Eldrazi spawn tokens and turns them into, you don't have to sacrifice them anymore, right? So they're just permanent mana rocks at that point that you can just continue to use, tap them for color. One gains you life, the other one draws you cards and makes more Eldrazi tokens. It's exactly what we want to be doing in this deck, right? Is ramping. They're providing that ramp for us in that type of deck. All right, let's continue on with our next card.
Glaring Fleshraker. Another Eldrazi. It's a drone. Whenever you cast colorless spells, create a 0-1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add a colorless. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. There's a lot to unpack here.
Go for it. Go for the unpacking of this card. So remember, we're Eldrazi Ramp. So what is this doing for us here?
Right off the bat.
So right off the bat, just the spawn, right? Whenever you cast a color spell, right? So we're casting a lot of colorless spells in this deck. So even the spells that have a mana pip in it have devoid, so they're colorless, right? So the Path of Annihilation, the Kozilek Unsealing, those count towards colorless spells when you cast them. So you're just ramping more, right? It's creating more ramp. What about the second part here?
Any colorless creature, when it enters the battlefield, you're giving a 1 damage to each opponent. So, boom, 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 killing.
killing,
Doom.
right? Yeah. So
They're
you're
done.
casting colorless spells, creating creatures that are going to then deal damage to your opponent when they ETB. That's nuts in itself, for sure. This is an impact trimmers and just a ramp piece by itself. I think everyone knows by now that Glaring Flesh Raker is a limited hero for sure in this format. Absolutely. So our last kind of enhancer here is a Lord effect. It is it that heralds the end. For one colorless and one waste. Colorless spells you cast with mana value 7 or greater cost 1 less to cast. Other colorless creatures you control get +1/+1, and it's a 2/2. So again, we're ramping here. This is allowing the larger spells that we want to get to in the game, pretty much in your mid-game time frame. So from 4 to about 6, you want to be able to cast 7 or greater spells by that time. So these cards are just going to help get you there quicker, right? It that heralds the end is making the seven drops and more cost 1 less. So if it's a 7, it now costs 6. Glaring Flesh Raker is going to create Eldrazi Scion as you're casting colorless spells, which the whole deck is centered around colorless spells. And of course, we want to be able to get to either Emrakul, Ulamog, or Kozilek, right? And those guys are big boys. And so this whole setup, these enhancers are here to really set you up to be able to cast them as soon as possible and just kind of demoralize your opponent. Yeah. All right. Our next set here is going to be for Affinity that we're going to go over and talk about the Affinity draft enhancers.
Refurbished Familiar. Affinity for artifacts. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. Flying. When Refurbished Familiar enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. For each opponent who can't, you draw a card. Modern Horizons 3 is just loaded with artifacts.
Yeah, so this is pretty sneaky and common, I'm sorry. So it has affinities. So this ideally you're probably casting before turn 4. It has flying, so that gives it evasion. And then you're getting to target your opponent. So they're either going to be discarding a card or you're drawing a card. So on top of that, it is another artifact, which is really nice because you just continue to add on to your affinity count. All right, this next card is already banned in Pauper. Was banned in Pauper before the set even officially launched. It got banned. And that's Cranial Ram. It is still able to be played in Draft and other formats, but is banned in Pauper. This is a living weapon, which when it enters the battlefield is going to create a germ, a 0/0 germ. Equipped creature gets +X+1, where X is the number of artifacts you control, equipped for 2. This card's pretty busted. If you guys remember Cranial Plating, which is +X+0 for each artifact you control, it has an equip cost of 2 as well, I believe, and has been played in affinity decks and artifact decks alike. That one has an instant speed equip cost of a black mana. Cranial Ram is somewhat of a powered up version of it because you're going to get a living weapon. So you're getting a creature, you're getting a body when this enters the battlefield. So it's automatically going to have something on it that you can attack with. And if you're playing affinity, you're going to have a lot of artifacts. So that creature is going to be a 4/1, a 5/1, a 6/1, whatever it might be. There. It does not count towards your artifact cost though, because the creature itself is not an artifact, but the cranial ram does by itself. So, all right, on to our next one.
Arcbound Condor. It's a bird. It costs 2 black and 2 colorless. Flying, modular 3. This creature enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, you may put its +1/+1 counters on a target artifact creature. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end turn. It it comes in as a 0/0, but it has modular 3, so you get the 3 +1/+1 counters.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start putting those small artifacts on the field, your opponent's creature gets negative, which usually when I'm playing and I'm attacking, I'm usually off by a little bit. That would just push them over the edge.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of removal here with the -1/-1. Obviously, if you can neg1 enough to get their creature down to 0, that creature just dies. -1/-1 also doesn't care about indestructible, because if the creature's at 0, it leaves the battlefield. You have the evasion again with flying. The modular, you're playing affinity, you're playing a lot of artifacts and artifact creatures. So when this dies, it's just going to benefit you. You get to put those 3 +1/+1 counters somewhere else. Make something else bigger, maybe on your worm coils, larvas, right? So you can put them on there and make those guys a little bit bigger.
This helps with Death Touch for sure.
Yeah. Got Death Touch creature? Sure, I'll block it. All right. The last card here is Angel of the Ruins. Now, there's no cost reduction on this one, but it is an artifact creature angel for 5 colorless and 2 white. So this is definitely going to be more on your top end if you're building this for draft. It has flying. It's a 5/7. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments. It also has plane cycling for 2, which is discard this card, search your library for a planes card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then souffle, aka shuffle. So it's just another artifact creature to kind of dump in there, but it's removal of 2 things, and it's exile, and they don't come back. And this also gives you the ability to, if it's early in the game, you can cycle it for 2. Go find a planes. A lot of these are splashing a color in these archetypes. So affinity seems to be majority black-red. You'll find some things in white, so you'll probably splash white. And this gives you a top end. It has evasion with flying. It's a 5/7. It's a big body. It's also taking away things. So it's got a lot of stuff going on for an uncommon in this set, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right, so we got one more to go through here, and that is going to be for our draft enhancers, the energy. So we'll have Miranda kick us off here with the energy.
Roly Cartographer. It is a merfolk rogue. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, you get an energy. Pay 6 energy, draw 3 cards. For 2 mana, it does the job. Especially if you're playing with green.
Yeah, I mean, landfall trigger is huge. So as we said earlier, energy seems to be more so in blue-red with a splash of white as well, or red or blue-white with a splash of red, however you want to look at it. But landfall trigger, so every turn you play a land, you can play 1 land a turn. If you have anything that allows you to play more than 1 land, you're just going to be stacking up your energy counters. And this deck cares about you having energy counters. Being able to get to 6 energy should be very easy in this deck. Royal Cartographer helps with getting there with just hitting off your land drops. It is a 1/3, so it can dodge some things, some removal and stuff like that. It can be a decent blocker for early game with smaller things, 2/2s, 1/2s, and things like that. And then late game, it's just going to draw you more cards. Drawing 3 cards is pretty insane, right? All right, our next one here is an artifact. It is it Generatorium? I don't know how to say that word. You guys can laugh at me in the comments. I don't really care. Anyways, it's is it colors. So 1 blue, 1 red. If you would get 1 or more energy, you get that many plus 1 energy instead. And then it has tap, draw a card, activate only if you've paid or lost 4 or more energy this turn. So yeah, this is pretty much a card called Hardened Scales. It's Hardened Scales is in green and it has to deal with +1/+1 counters, right? So anytime you get 1 or more +1/+1 counters, put that many +1/+1 counters plus 1 more onto your creature, right? I remember back when Hardened Scales came out, we continued to tell one of our friends, uh, you've met him, his name's Furtado, you should play Hardened Scales in your standard deck. He was playing the counters deck, +1/+1 counters deck. He wouldn't do it. He waited till like the week before the set rotated out and finally put Hardened Scales into the deck. And then it was illegal. So it was great. But if you're playing an energy deck, you're playing this. You're getting more energy as which is what you already want to do, right? So Royal Cartographer, landfall triggers, you're getting 1 instead. Now you're getting 2 if you have this artifact out. If you have more than 1 of these artifacts out, they do stack. So this isn't uncommon.
Yeah, since you're paying 6, then the other one triggers.
Yep. So, well, just with the landfall trigger,
Yep.
right? Landfall, you'll get 2 energy, but instead you'll get 4 energy because they're stacking now. And this is how you really make this deck kind of start to steamroll with the energy and stuff like that. Paying for energy is going to be very easy for you to do. The cartographer pays for 6, right? So you've got different ways to do that. And this is just going to draw you more cards, refill your hand, and things like that. All right, moving on to our next card here.
Scurry of Gremlins. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red gremlin creature tokens. Then you get an amount of creature tokens. Then you get an amount of energy counters equal to the number of creature tokens you control. Pay 4 energies. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. All these cards kind of go together, but in draft, who's looking to play 3 colors?
Yeah, a lot of people aren't. So that's why I said it's a splash, right? We're definitely looking at splashing. And again, this set allows for you to splash very easily with the lands that are in it that allow you to tap, sack, and go find them. And those are pretty well placed in the set. There's plenty of them. There's abundance of those. So this is just another enabler. You're getting 2 bodies. You're going to get an amount of energy equal to the number of creatures you control. Hopefully you have a lot by this turn, especially if you're using any of those early bombs that we were talking about for energy that are creating additional tokens and things like that. And then you can just kind of almost overrun. You can actually activate this ability and give the +1/+0 more than once. So you can continue to activate this and pump up your creatures quite a bit here with that energy. It is going to take a little bit with the energy, but this deck can definitely very quickly steamroll. It's definitely going to be more of a early to mid game type of deck. It has a lot of It's going to have rushers and things like that. Things are attacking early on and quickly. So you want to attack with a lot of stuff. As we saw earlier, we had the artifact that also gives you energy for attacking. So, all right, the last artifact here, or the last card here that we had was Smelted Charge Bug for 1 colorless and 1 red. It's an artifact creature insect. It has menace. When Smelted Charge Bug enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. And then whenever Smelted Charge Bug attacks, you may pay 1 energy. If you do, another target attacking creature gets +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn. And this is a 1/3. So again, menace is another evasion tactic. It takes 2 creatures to block instead of just 1. You're pumping up another creature when this is attacking with something else. And it kind of pays for itself. It gives you 2 energy, and you only need to use 1 for the actual activation. So I think this deck, I think all 3 of these decks are really good for draft. What do you think, Miranda?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think looking at it in this way, right, breaking down some of the cards, looking at your uncommons, commons, seeing what the enablers are for each one of the decks is really, really big. Those enhancers, right? So that's really, really big. All right, up next we've got MH3 in the modern landscape. Now it's been a while, a few months, I'll say, since I really played modern. I was playing Jund last. Kind of got over Jund. Didn't really want to play it a whole lot more. The landscape was pretty quick, and my Jund deck just wasn't getting it done. Right, Jund of old, if it was like 7, 8 years ago, my Jund deck would be fire. But today, not so much. What about your experience with playing in modern? Competitive, constructive?
I lost every time.
Not the lost every time. But what were you playing?
I was playing my standard deck.
Standard deck and modern, which was
It was Esper.
Esper. Okay.
Esper.
Esper seemed to be okay, right? You probably stole some games here and there, but not overall round wins.
No.
Yeah.
I changed the lands, and that was about it.
Changed the lands, and that was about it. All right. Well, next we're going to talk about modern and the modern staples for this set that are coming out. So we've got a list here. Probably no surprise to any of you guys out there. There is at least one reprint in this. Everything else is pretty new for this. So here's our modern staples that we're talking about today. We've already talked about one of these, which is Ulamog the Defiler. I used to play Eldrazi Tron, green-red Eldrazi Tron, about 7, 8 years ago, and a little bit farther back than that. And I was really just kind of going around the country, playing in tournaments, Grand Prix, Opens, things like that, just grinding out the modern landscape as much as possible. So it's really nice for me, pretty nostalgic, to be honest with you, to see the Eldrazi come back, see the support that they're getting with Eldrazi as well, starting with Ulamog the Defiler. So we've already went over this card. I think this is going to be pretty good in the Tron deck. I was also kind of looking into Kozilek for getting hand size back. Seemed pretty good as well. But the Annihilator in this, the Ward sacrificing 2 permanents, 7/7 is nice. But then just when you cast it, exiling the top half of your opponent's library, rounded up, is pretty big to go up against like Glorious Vengeance, any other type of deck that is using their graveyard, like Living End, which Living End actually got nerfed pretty big recently with recent bans, but this card is nuts. The other card for Tron is Ugin's Labyrinth. This is Imprint. It is a land. I think we got more land support in this than anything for Tron. But Ugin's Labyrinth is a big one. It's a mythic. It has Imprint. When Ugin's Labyrinth enters the battlefield, you may exile a colorless card with mana value 7 or greater from your hand. Tap, add 1 waste or colorless. If a card is exiled with Ugin's Labyrinth, add 2 waste instead. And then you can tap it, return the exile card to its owner's hand. So if you guys aren't familiar with Tron, which I think most people are that play Modern, Tron, the whole idea is to get Urza's Mine, Power Plant, and Tower, which to assemble, which together they create 7 mana. Outside of that, most of the deck is searching for those lands, and then being able to play 7-drop cost or bigger creatures and some planeswalkers out there. The deck has recently added in, which a lot of decks have, the One Ring is a recent upgrade to the deck. I think Ugin's Labyrinth we're going to see in there as well. The Urza's Saga land is in there. That's a recent upgrade that used to not be played when I was originally playing. But these two together, I think, are pretty big. I think you still run Karn, the Great Creator. You're running Karn Liberated now, and things like that. But this Ugin's Labyrinth allows you to exile one of those cards, 7 or greater. So you can exile your Karn Liberated, which is a 7 cost. Be able to use this to tap for 2 mana. So you're mana ramping on turn 1. And this is going to allow you to play some of the cards that that allow you to combat some of the quicker decks that are out there early, right? Chalice of the Void on one, essentially on turn one, right? Chalice of the Void on one is really huge in this deck to help protect it because it needs to assemble Tron. And so this is just going to be able to assist in doing that with this deck. I know you don't play as much Modern as I have. I've played a lot of Modern throughout my years of playing Magic. So this is just a huge card. Just from you reading this, what do you think about this and hearing a little bit about the deck? She is speechless, guys. Speechless. No words. All right. So, Miranda, let's talk about this next card here that we have. It's a Merfolk.
Harbinger of the Sea. Non-basic lands are islands. It's a Merfolk Wizard. Costs 3 to play. It 2/2. It's similar to Magnus of the Moon and Blood Moon.
Blood Moon,
Blood
yeah.
Moon. It's gonna lock all the fetches, all the non-basic lands.
And just the land we were just talking about, right?
If they're in anything except blue, the game's over.
Yeah, so there was a deck that it was called Fish in Modern, which is essentially just a Merfolk deck, and it tries to island walk and things like that. So I think this card slots in very well for that deck. We may see Fish come back in Modern. This might be a new Modern staple. We'll see what happens. The next one we've got is Kappa Cannoneer. There's a lot of great things I think that Affinity sees with this set for artifacts, and we possibly see a resurgence of Affinity in Modern. I know some people are already teching it out. I know Kappa Cannoneer is already a staple in Legacy. Like I said, this is a reprint. But we do think this is more of a sideboard type of card with the Ward 4. It's not as good as Affinity because you're improvising, which is causing you to tap your artifacts in order to cast it. But it is Affinity-esque. And I think the biggest thing is the +1/+1 and unblockable along with the Ward 4 is huge. All right. Let's go on to our next one. This is a new one for Modern, I think. So Nadu Winged Wisdom, Bird Wizard. We did talk about this earlier when we were talking about draft. So for one colorless, a green and a blue, it's a bird wizard, 3/4 flying. Creatures you control have whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. This is going to be a new archetype I think we see in Modern that's currently not there. That's going to be based around targeting that creature, targeting your own creatures to pump them up, things like that, giving them +1/+1 counters and things of that nature. It also kind of helps with deterring your opponents from actually targeting it, because when they target it, it's going to cause it to trigger. So you're either ramping and getting another land on the battlefield, and the land doesn't come in tapped. Otherwise, the card goes into your hand, so it's a card draw for you, card advantage and things like that. It also is flying. It's a 3/4 for 3, which slots right into Modern just the way they want it to be. It's quick, it's fast, it's able to be explosive. So curious to see how this shakes out for the Modern landscape with these 5 cards that we listed out here today. All right, next we're going to move on to Commander. Commander, one of my favorite formats. Miranda, how's your Commander career gone for you so far?
I use precons.
Precons are getting very strong today, to be completely honest with you guys. It is crazy. So we're going to talk about some Commander heroes, some things that are going to be new staples within the Commander landscape for you guys to look out for those of you that play EDH or AKA Commander, that you're going to want to see put in decks and things like that. So starting off, we've got a new cycle called the Flare Cycle. And this is in every color. Each one of these say you may sacrifice a non-token whatever color the spell is. So if it's white, blue, blue, black is black, red is red, and green is green, instead of paying its mana cost. So very similar to if you control your commander, you may cast a spell for free that cycle. But these are going to do some different things. They're all instants in this cycle, except for the green one. The green one's a sorcery. Why'd they do that to green? Does green not need instant speed spells? All right, so let's start off with the white one, Flare of Fortitude.
You may sacrifice a non-token white creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Until end of turn, your life total can't change, and permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible. Any board wipes play this. Nothing's going anywhere.
Yeah, nothing's going anywhere is right. This is like a pseudo Teferi's Protection, which Teferi's Protection phases everything out. Instead, things get hexproof and indestructible, and your life total can't change, which Teferi's Protection does as well, which is very nice. So another way for white to just stop things from happening. I know of at least one commander player that does not need that card, but they'll be putting it in every one of their white decks anyways. He already has all the other free, indestructible, like casting spells that you can possibly think of they could find in white in those decks. The next one is the blue one. This is a free counter spell, Flare of Denial. Same thing. You may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Counter target spell. Otherwise, it is one colorless and two blue. Blue has enough free counter spells: Force of Will, Force of Negation, Pact Negation. There's a lot. There's a whole list, and they're getting another one. This is probably going to CC EDH play potentially for this particular flare. It's definitely going to see EDH, regular EDH play for sure. It is a very, very good spell, countering your opponent's spell for free. And some people out there are saying, well, you got to sacrifice a creature. Well, any of the ones that you have to not spend mana on, which blue loves to do, is the best way to play it. So moving on to the black flare.
Flare of Malice. Flare of Malice. It's an instant. It costs 4, but you may sacrifice a non-token black creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. That's dope. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. Again, MH3. A lot of these artifacts are very high costs, so that just wipes those out, or at least one of those.
Yeah, so you're playing 4-man pod. Someone drops Emrakul, right? Like, what are you gonna do against Emrakul? Let me play this Flare of Malice. I'll play a little 1/1, one cost mana black creature, cast Flare of Malice, and you're getting rid of Emrakul. Also, if anyone casts anything after Emrakul, you're getting rid of that creature as well. So it's essentially can turn into a board wipe, depending on what your opponents are playing. But it does get rid of the scariest things on the board, is the biggest thing here with this. It also gets rid of planeswalkers, which is nice as well. So it just gets can get rid of planeswalker. Downside of this is your opponents get to choose if they're sacrificing a creature or a planeswalker. But it is among creatures and planeswalkers they control. So they have to choose the one that has the greatest mana value.
Yep.
So you can get rid of the scary planeswalkers on the battlefield. You can get rid of the scary creatures on the battlefield. It's a pseudo board wipe. It's nice. All right, next we have Flare of Duplication. This is the red instant. So for 1 colorless and 2 red mana, you may sacrifice a non-token red creature rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Uh, First deck I thought about for this is my new Stella Lee deck. She's in blue red, and she loves when you copy spells. The more spells you copy and things like that, you're looking for storm count in that, and copying and things like that is just part of that deck. Being able to sack a creature to play this for free is just great. I'll definitely be looking for this. You're copying another spell, which means you're getting 2 triggers. And that deck, I draw a lot of cards, and I want to draw as many cards as possible. Right? It's a lot of cantrips. So while I'm drawing cards, if I come across a Flare Duplication, I can just sack a red creature that I have on the field that isn't really doing me anything. Maybe even my commander. Copy one of my draw spells, draw some additional spells, giving me a card advantage and things like that in that deck. Mono red decks like to do direct damage with their spells. This is going to allow them to do that. Instead of taking 4 damage, you're taking 8 damage, and if they have any damage doublers, you're taking a bajillion damage with this. Right? They definitely don't mind sacking their creatures. I know in my Soulflame deck, I sack creatures anyways. So let me sack a creature and double something that I'm going to deal 10 damage with. Do that twice, I'm taking somebody out. All right, and the last flare.
Flare of Cultivation. You may sacrifice a non-token green creature rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, put one into your battlefield tapped, and the other one into your hand, then shuffle. Especially, this helps if you're having mana problems.
Yeah. So this is definitely doing green things, right? Green loves to ramp. This is similar to cultivates, things like that. They're getting more than one land out. This is the same thing. The difference here is you can literally cultivate, sack a green creature, and Flare of Cultivation on the same turn. So on turn 3, I can play 3, cultivate, go get 2 lands, put one in my hand, put one on the battlefield tapped, and then sack my green mana dork or whatever that I just used to tap for that cultivate, and do it again. So I can go up 2 lands on the battlefield, putting 2 lands into my hand, and really just kind of mana fix. So what do you think about these flares in Commander? Do you think you want to put any of these in any of your decks?
I play precons.
I play precons. All right, so upgrading decks and precons, guys. If you ever want to see that video, let us know down in the comments below. Maybe we can get Miranda here to just, she can still play precons, but maybe upgrade them a little bit and see some of these new cards. All right, so we're moving on to one more part here for our commander list. Could not go without going through these. We've got a couple more commander heroes cards here as well. So the first one, we've got the last elemental blast to the set. There's a blue one, there's a red one, there's a green one, there's a black one. We did not have a colorless one, and now we have null elemental blast. So choose one, counter target multicolored spell, destroy target multicolored permanent, or destroy target multicolored permanent. So for 1 waste, you're able to play this. I think you're going to see this card in a lot of EDH decks. It's only 1 colorless. There's a ton of mana out there in EDH that create waste, whether it be things like your pain lands, which tap for a waste, or tap for a color if you ping yourself, or just colorless lands out there in general. Every deck has them. And every deck uses them. Even things like Soul Ring will count towards this. So every deck runs Soul Ring and Commander, so there's no reason not to run a Null Elemental Blast. It is an instant. There's tons of multicolored spells within Commander, and this is going to be able to counter all of them. And then you can also destroy target multicolored permanent. So it's not as fixed as what red or blue and stuff like that, where they're targeting a specific color. So red counters blue or destroys a blue permanent. Blue counters red or destroys a red permanent. It still hits multicolored in all instances, because if it's red or blue in the pips, it's still that color. But this is just going to hit a lot more. I think this goes along with all of those type of other elemental blast. We'll probably see CEDH play. CEDH already plays blue and red elemental blast. You'll probably play this as well. This may be a little too much targeted towards multicolored for CEDH, so you may see people cut this out, but there's still a lot of multicolored permanents in CEDH. So
We're going to the next card. Orm's Chant. It's an instant, cost 1. Kicker is a plains. Target player can't cast spells this turn. If this spell was kicked, creatures can't attack this turn. So if you know they're doing something, sketchy, I would definitely play this. This is a reprint from Planeshift.
is it?
Yes, it also has the Planeshift logo.
Oh, it does.
On the wording.
Very true. So Orange Chant is a reprint, as Miranda said. So this card is very similar to another card called Silence, which just stops your opponents from casting spells that turn. The difference is for 2, you can not only silence them, but you can stop their creatures from attacking. So pretty good there. All right, next we've got a new instant counter spell with Strix Serenade. So for 1 blue, it's an instant counter target artifact, creature, or planeswalker spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. If you're familiar with Swan Song, that is essentially what this is. It is a Swan Song. This is specific to artifacts, creatures, or planeswalker spells. And then they're going to create a 2/2 bird. So this, I think, will 100% see CEDH play. CEDH is always looking for cheaper counter spells that it can use to counter things, and Strix Serenade is going to allow them to do that for any artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers that they actually cast. So that's going to be a good one there as well.
Fanatics of Rona. It's creature, Snake Druid. Only costs 2. I think we already talked about this.
Yeah, we did. We talked about this for draft. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, when it dies, you can bring it back as a 4/4. Plus, if you tap it, you add 4 green mana.
Yeah, if it dies and comes back, it turns itself on. That is absolutely right. But also for those mono green decks, green stompy decks, as we said before, Fanatic of Ronus is going to be great for that. It's a mana dork. Green already likes mana dorks. They want to ramp. They want to get to their big things quicker. And then once you get those big things out, it's going to tap for 4 mana instead of just 1. So you get that added benefit.
Yep.
And then you can always bring it back with the Eternalize, which is nice as well. All right, so that's everything we have for you guys today. Let us know down below in the comments, what are your favorite MH3 cards? What did you like from the set? What do you guys think on draft? I know there's some experts out there. All right, let us know in the comments below what your favorite MH3 cards were for draft. Obviously, we're not draft experts, but these are the ones that we particularly like for drafting in MH3. We also have a couple events coming up here soon, like our...
We got a 3v3 on July
22nd.
June 22nd.
June 22nd.
June 22nd. First team will go home with collector booster box, 3
of them
of MH3.
Yep. So not 1, not 2, but 3. So that's 1 per player in your team. We've got 32 slots available. So make sure you guys go and sign up today. That's 96 players, guys. That's a lot of people. Is it 96?
Yep.
Yeah, 96. It's a lot of people. We're able to host it. So make sure you guys come in, check us out. Link will be in the description down below so you can register today. Don't miss it, guys. Until then, again, my name was Mac, and this was
Miranda
with First Capital Gaming.
Peace.
Until next time, guys, deuces.
Okay.